Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and this is episode number 144. And today, guys, we have a really special show for you, and we have a very special guest joining Dr. Dan Pompa, our resident cellular healing specialist, and I. Today, we have another amazing team member of ours, and that is Ms. Erin Smith out in California. So he's also a keto queen. She has been delving into the keto lifestyle and has been a part of our team for a while, helping us do a lot of amazing things. So welcome, Erin. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and why you're on our Keto Q&A episode.
Well, thanks, guys. It is so fun to be here. I feel like a kid on Christmas morning, so this is so fun. So thank you. Yes, I've working with you guys for a few years now, been in the health industry for, almost 10 now, working with practitioners, with high-end supplements in the past. And now I'm hanging out with you guys, just complete health nut, follow Dr. Pompa like nobody's business. And now I get to work with you guys, and it's so wonderful, and helping spread the message about true cellular detox, and just felt really called to just help change the world in a really big way. And that's what we're doing, with this epidemic that we're going through with toxicity. But, we know ketosis is a huge part of the healing. And so learning about it over the past few years has been so fun. And I'm just obviously crazy about it. And that's why we're here. So it's awesome.
Well, I don't want to get too far off track, but I always ask our guests, hey, what's your why, right? I mean, in other words, what drives you in this field? You have a story. So just, briefly, tell your story. I mean, you're driven.
Oh, yeah. So back in the day, before I knew much, I've been in the health, I'm learning about health for I don't know how many years now, and thought I was doing things right and really into fitness and health. And I was like, do a detox. And I did this detox, and I learned, I learned the hard way about detox. I got very sick for a while, and just really changed my life in a really big way. And long story short, fast forwarding to now, what we're doing, helping with, everyone that's toxic, but mostly down in California here with the autism spectrum down here. And that's really why I'm here, is to help those kids that are going through massive, health issues. But, I went through it myself as well, and that's why I'm here. And
you did the detox wrong, and literally, it put you in the hospital.
Yeah, I almost didn't make it out. It led me to here as a blessing in disguise, and the best thing that could have ever happened to me. But
then you ran into one of our doctors, who are trained in true cellular detox, and he says, "Look, this is the way you have to do it." And you've been on board with us ever since. You do. That's you promote all the true cellular detox, cyto detox. Your connection to our doctors. You really are, and so. Educating our doctors on how to put this in their practice. That's part of what Erin does. Okay, but it brings us to today's topic because, look, the three of us have experimented with, fasting, which I think is another show, ketosis and all these things. And you girls always raise amazing questions, right? And I think being at the seminar, even more questions got raised, right? Because we had, 200 some doctors there, and we were doing blood testing, ketone testing, and glucose testing on them, showing them, how to determine if someone's fasting or if they're going into gluconeogenesis. And you had so many great questions. And Meredith and I were like, we got to do a show. So we're just going to fire away. Honestly, I think we should just go through some of these questions, because I promise you our viewers and listeners have these questions too.
Yep, exactly.
A lot of them are from doctors. They are from viewers. We get phone calls. We get emails. We get so many of the same questions, and because we talk a lot about ketosis. So this episode is dedicated to that. And if you guys have future questions, we can do future shows. But we had to start somewhere. So Erin kind of put some of these things together, and this is really exciting. So
it was a great list of questions. Let's jump in.
Awesome. All right. So one of the questions we get a lot. So how should athletes and non-athletes who are struggling with adrenal fatigue approach ketosis?
Yeah. If an athlete's struggling with adrenal fatigue, I would immediately say overtraining. Rest more, right? Yeah. Rest more. That's the biggest mistake the athletic world is people overtrain. But let's talk about adrenal fatigue, because adrenal fatigue is obviously very common, right? We know that any type of stress, or physical, chemical, or emotional, the adrenals are the downstream whipping boy that they have to adapt. But here's the thing. It may take longer for someone with adrenal fatigue to get into ketosis. However, they do. And then it becomes less of a stress. Once the cell, the mitochondria, becomes an efficient fat burner, there's frankly less stress, because you're not getting the glucose rises and the glucose drops. We look at what the adrenals do. It has to deal with that day in, day out. Those types of rises and falls, are very stressful and create a lot of stress into, the whole endocrine system, and obviously affecting the adrenals. So, yes, could you do some adrenal support? We talk about the Seraphos, we talk about GA, and other ways to support the adrenals, of course. But I believe, ketosis really is a tremendous, asset to adrenal fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Now, what if someone wanted to combine ketosis and fasting who was also experiencing adrenal fatigue? Do you suggest that, or do you think just the ketogenic diet would be more advisable in that case?
Well, look, anybody can fast, and it depends on if we're talking about daily fasting or block fasting. Daily fasting, we look at glucose, and Aaron, you did some experimenting on yourself like we did at the seminar. We look at glucose in ketones as a way, doing it just with a simple blood prick in the finger, doing it in the morning and doing it before your first meal, is your body adapting to that intermittent fast? Because, when you talk to Jason Fung, Dr. Fung, who has written a couple books about this, and he's doing all this research up at the University of Toronto, he says, look, I don't care, no matter what, someone will eventually adapt. I agree with him. However, in that interim is what we want. We can make that adaptation much more pleasant because, someone will, if they're not adapting, whether it's just low adrenals, they'll start breaking muscle down into glucose. So by looking at what the body's doing with their glucose and ketones throughout the day, we can determine how long that fast is, and we can shorten it in the beginning while they're getting better and better and more efficient at fat burning. So that's how we determine that.
Mm-hmm. Now, adding a lot of fat in, if somebody wanted to do intermittent fasting but was kind of move into ketosis but was experiencing adrenal fatigue, that would kind of maintain blood sugar and possibly help ease the fast, correct?
Yeah, it does. You can add some fats in, which, sometimes work for people, sometimes they don't. So again, looking at your glucose numbers after you take in fat. Does glucose rise or does glucose fall? If it rises, then it's not the best thing. If it falls, then that's a good thing, and it can be supportive. However, we want to get to the point where we just fast, right, with very little fats. We don't want to keep fat, because the part of fasting is the fact that we want not to eat. We want to rest our cells. We want to rest our GI. We know that just eating nothing, you get the highest growth hormone rise, the most insulin sensitivity. Some small amounts of calories, I don't think that it matters, but we know that too much can take someone out of the benefits of fasting. So again, and here's the other thing, to get into ketosis, you don't need to eat fats to get into ketosis, because your body will eat its own fat, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that a 2-day water fast, we see ketones flying off the chart. You're not eating fat because you're burning fat. So, right. That's a misnomer. But anyways, I don't know if that answered that all. Yeah.
I think that's such a great point to hammer home too, because people think, oh, ketosis, the ketogenic diet, that they have to eat like 90% fat, that it's fat all the time. But just like the simple water fast, when you transition your cells over into burning their own fat for energy, the ketones rise, and then you can shift into ketosis from just drinking water. So I think that's a concept we forget and maybe don't always think about or clarify enough. Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dominic D'Agostino, he just spoke at our last seminar, and he's the one doing like all these amazing studies for the Defense Department, for the Navy SEALs in ketosis. He brought up a good point. He says there's different types of going into ketosis, right? There's the keto diet that's 90% fat that we do for, we did for seizure patients. Then there's, basically a modified ketosis. That's what he said he does. And that's what I do, modified. I don't eat extreme amounts of fat. You know, I mean, I consider very high fat. I'm sure it's considered compared to the American diet. However, it's modified, meaning that you don't need a lot of fat to go into ketosis. You know, you just need really quality, you know, higher fat.
And I think if I can stem off that, that's always one question. Again, people that are really into it like I am, that we want to know, okay, well, exactly how much fat, you know, because like you said, everyone is different. Everyone has their bodies are different and their needs are different. How active they are is different. But I mean, I know some people, they start at 50% fat, 60% fats, and kind of work their way up. You know, is that something that
here's really what it comes down to, right? If you decrease your carbohydrates below 50 grams, which is typically where people have to be in ketosis, it really is, it's a carbohydrate thing more so than a fat thing. Now, too much protein will break down into sugar. So, you know, we have to consider protein as being moderate. You know, we can talk about that. So, but what happens when you drop your carbs and do moderate protein? You still need to eat. So where are your calories going? They have to shift to fat. You see what I'm saying? So really the fat is more of, okay, we want to make up the calories. What are you going to do? You make up with too much protein, you can knock you out of ketosis. You can't do it in carbohydrates. So really it leaves fat. But really what throws you into ketosis? It's the lack of carbohydrates that actually puts you in ketosis, not the increase in fat. So to answer your question, what I have a lot of my clients do is they download Cronometer, that's C-R-O-N, meter, M-E-T-E-R, and they track what they're eating. Because then if they're saying, well, we're looking at their numbers, and to be in ketosis, you want to be at least above 0.5 millimolars of ketones. So we're testing that, and let's say they're not in. Well, Cronometer will let me know what to adjust. Oh my gosh, well, it could be because you're eating too much protein, right? Well, it could be because your carbohydrates aren't low enough. You know, some people need to go down to 20 or 30 because they're that, you know, not efficient. And then what is your fat? Because maybe we need to give you more fat just because you're starving yourself and it's caloric restriction. So does that help that at all?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great point to make, just to clarify that. And that brings me to two follow-up questions with that as well, which we had gotten one in. How to test for ketosis, which that kind of ties in there. And then someone asked, can you do the ketogenic diet without a gallbladder?
Yeah. And on that last note, I want to say this, Aaron, to make sure your question's answered. It's different for everybody. I have people on the gallbladder note, so I'm combining these two questions, which are great. They don't break fat down well, right? But we want to put them in ketosis. So then I lean towards more protein because I have to, in the hopes that we're not using that to go into sugar. So I have some people who can't really do a lot of high fat because they have trouble breaking down. Of course, we can assist that with some bile salt called ox bile. 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams per fatty meal helps. Lipase is another enzyme that breaks down fat. That helps as well. And most enzymes like digestozyme, it has some bile, it has some lipase, but sometimes we need to add a little extra ox bile or bile salt to break down fat. However, we still have people who struggle, so they can't do as high a fat. So literally, I put them in a ketotic state with not that high of fat, just because we have to. And then it starts to become a little easier for them, and then we can start to raise up their fat. Because I think fat benefits us in other areas. It helps the cell membrane. It helps the brain. I mean, it's a clean burning fuel. So, I mean, we want fat, but it is different for everybody, Aaron.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That helps. Yeah, those enzymes, that was one of my questions, so thank you. Because I do know people that they struggle to break down fat, and they love the idea of ketogenic diet, but they're just like, I can't break it down. What do I do? So that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And another little tip is, coffee enemas, or a product that you sell at Revelation Health called Xenoplex, Xeneplex, which is a coffee enema and a suppository. Every time I do suppository, I do this. I know I do that. I do that.
It works.
My children always point that out to me. Dad, every time you say this word suppository, you act it out. All right. Anyways, so we take a couple bind, which is a binder that sits in the gut, and you do a coffee enema, or you do the Xenoplex, and it pushes out the bile, which oftentimes is backed up in the liver. and it's toxic bile. We call it hepatic biliary sludge, meaning liver bile sludge. And we need to get that out of there. And when we do, we're able to break down fat more. So, having that as part of, somebody's regimen for, a while until they get more efficient helps.
Mm-hmm. I know you shared a little trick before too, but I just want to clarify the sequence. So you take the Bind activated charcoal, and then you eat a fatty meal, and then you do the Xenoplex suppository. Is that the correct sequence?
Yeah, exactly. So you can take the Bind maybe 30 minutes ahead of the Xenoplex or a coffee enema. And I even like to take a couple more after, just to kind of clean up. So the fatty meal forces out the bile. Mm-hmm. So does the coffee enema, as well as the Xenoplex. That forces out the bile. Because when you eat fat, you produce bile to digest it, okay? So we want to push that bile out and by the way, a coffee enema, it's the caffeine that actually stimulates that bile to come out with all those toxins. Then the Bind is sitting in there as a catcher's mitt, so you don't reabsorb it, but you pull it out. So we're pulling out that toxic bile, opening up the liver, and then it makes that more efficient, that whole process. So a little trick.
Mm-hmm. So you do the Bind or the coffee enema prior to the fatty meal?
Yeah, so you take the Bind, okay? Mm-hmm. 30 minutes to an hour later, you eat the fatty meal and do the coffee enema. Boom, boom, boom. Yep.
Bind, food, coffee enema. Got it. That's a great tip for people that want to kind of detox a bit there. So awesome. And then did you want to go into the testing there a little bit more too with ketone testing and like to do in the time frame of that?
Yep. I wish I had mine. Maybe one of you girls can show, but we use Precision Extra meter. That's XTRA, Precision XTRA. It does make sure it does glucose and ketones. You buy strips that match the Precision Extra. Universal Drugstores is a place universaldrugstores.com is a place to get the ketone strips for $2 a strip, as opposed to paying $4 on Amazon. But the keto meter is about $25 on Amazon. So not expensive, and the glucose strips are very cheap. So the testing, when you look at the test for ketones, you're in ketosis above 0.5. So nutritional ketosis, 0.5 to about 7, 8. I've seen even people go up to 10 in a fasting situation with ketones and be just fine. If you start going 15, 20, 25, that's a whole different, you're not producing any insulin, and that can happen with diabetics. So that's called, that's diabetic ketosis. We don't want it. This is nutritional ketosis. So I like to do it in the morning. That's typically your lowest value. So if you're in the morning, we know you're going to be in later, because typically your ketones will rise through the day, especially if you're intermittent fasting. That's a whole other subject. But yeah, so that's how you test, if that helps.
Mm-hmm. Morning, and then, so if you are intermittent fasting and in ketosis, it would be a morning, and then it's prior to your first meal, right? To kind of measure to see where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, as we said, we had the adrenal conversation, is this working for me? And I said, how long someone can intermittent fast for. And I always feel like if we have new viewers, we kind of have to explain that. That means, let's say you eat dinner at 7 o'clock at night. You don't eat your first meal until later the next day. So 7 to 7, there's 12 hours. Add another 6, right? So that would be what? 1 o'clock in the afternoon would be your first meal. That's an 18-hour intermittent fast, which is a great intermittent fast. We know that all this hormone optimization happens by fasting every day, almost every day, around anywhere between 13 hours, if you will. I mean, there's studies that show there's a benefit even as little as that. But I think as you go, more benefits occur. So all the way up to even doing dinner to dinner, which is a 24-hour. Okay, so that's intermittent fasting. Now, to answer your question, doing morning glucose and morning ketones. Glucose, you write it down, 90. Ketones, 0.4. Okay, not quite in yet. Okay, what we want to see as the day goes on, we want to retest them right before you eat your first meal. Let's say it's 12 o'clock noon. Okay, that's my first meal. I'm going to retest it right before my first meal, and I'm going to go, okay, now let me write down my glucose and my ketones. What we want is we want glucose to drop and ketones to rise. Now, there's factors that can throw that off, right? What about your morning coffee? We'll talk about that, right? And Aaron, you have some experiment that you did there. Mm-hmm. But, and then what about exercise? Different types of exercise can throw that off, right? And we'll talk more about that. But let's say you didn't exercise, you didn't eat. Okay, let's keep it at that. We'll get to the other questions later. We want to see glucose drop and ketones rise. And that's really the magic happens, because what's happening is the ketones, your body's burning its fat, making ketones as a replacement for the glucose because you're not eating. So as you know, after 12 hours, your glycogen stores. That means you store your sugar in your muscles and your liver. They're dropping, and your body's making it up by burning fat. So ketones rise, glucose drop. Now, let's say it doesn't happen. Your glucose is starting to rise and your ketones are not moving or maybe even dropping. That means your body could be taking its muscle and breaking it down into sugar. Multiple reasons for that. We talked about adrenals. Maybe it's another hormone issue, thyroid condition. So we want to shorten the fast down to maybe 13 or 14 hours until we get that efficiency going. And then we can start to spread it out again. And eventually the body becomes more and more efficient. And that's the idea. So
I love that. And Aaron, I don't know if you want to kind of transition over into your little lab rat glucose testing personal experience. You have this kind of a good spot to maybe talk about that.
Yeah, so I had I've been doing actually 4-day block fast once a month. So I'm really definitely getting my body into this state, and I love it, right? But so a couple weeks ago I came off a 4-day fast, and I had my meal. Didn't break in very easily, but again, maybe that's something we can talk about. And I went and worked out, and I played volleyball for 2 hours in the sand. I'm down on the beach here in California, and it's 2-man, so I mean it's high intensity. And I played for 2 hours, and had my glucose, right? Grabbed it out of my bag. Everyone on the court's like, "What are you doing?" But I'm like, "Leave me alone." And I test my glucose, and it's gosh, what was it? 130. I had written down, right? 130. And then an hour later, I checked it again, and it dropped down to 77. Okay. And yeah.
Yep. So great. Let's look at that. So this was high intensity running around 2-man volleyball. Would you say that it is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Burst. Boom.
Burst.
Boom. Right. So what happens when you burst? When you burst, your body has to release glycogen, that's stored sugar, from its liver, from its muscles. So we would always expect a rise in glucose. So what you experience is absolutely normal. Now, as you went on, your glucose levels, you burned up your glucose, right? And so your glucose then came down, and now you were forced to use your fat for energy because you're fat adapted. So that may not happen for everybody. They may have to burn up their muscle because they're not efficient at fat burning, or they bump. They just don't have energy, and they go, "I need the sugar drink," because their body's not efficient at fat burning, but yours is. So what happens, your glucose came down, leveled off, because your body started burning fat as an energy source, and it became very efficient at that. So that's what happened. Now, if you were completely void of all your glycogen, then you could still, and you needed that burst, you might get a little lightheaded. But that's what happened. That was normal. So you had some other examples. What were some of the other ones?
I actually, with my document, Meredith has the document in front of her, but we had, there's a couple other situations that I had, but just in the morning, my glucose, I noticed its resting is like in the 90s. And for as much as I fast, when I get into these fasted states, my glucose will go to in the 70s, but resting is 90. I mean, does that say anything about stress, adrenals, even before working?
Your morning glucose is on average about 90. Is that what you're saying?
The 95. So for an example, your morning glucose was 95. You went paddle boarding for an hour and a half, ate fermented yogurt, and then it went down to 77.
Yeah. And that, again, that's what we would expect, because paddle boarding, is you can use all fat doing that, right? It's not super high intensity where you're bursting like on the thing, but you're going like that. So when I go on like a long mountain bike ride, I'm going to get lower glucose, or a long walk, you're going to get lower glucose tending down. But again, high intensity, you're going to get that spike in glucose, and then even a drop in ketones. But then doing the paddle boarding, your glucose would tend down. Your ketones are going to go which way? Up. Yeah, exactly, because you're burning fat. So glucose, remember, they move opposite, right? So when we see glucose tending down, we're going to see typically ketones tending up. So we know that you were burning fat paddle boarding, and the ketones were rising and the glucose was dropping. Okay, your morning glucose being 90, I think it's pretty normal. I mean, you tend to, your cortisol rises in the morning, and it's going to cause a little glucose release. When people start releasing around 100 or above, that's abnormal. That could be gluconeogenesis, where their body is breaking muscle down at night because they have the inability to burn fat when they're not eating through the night. So their body's breaking muscle down. That's why diabetics get their highest glucose in the morning. So their liver will start dumping glucose. Their body will break muscle down, whatever it has to do, because it's not able to burn fat. But it's a bad thing. So we don't want that. Now, you're in the 90s. I think it's pretty normal, a little bit of cortisol rise. But what we want to see now is, as you don't eat through the day, as you're intermittent fasting, we want to see the glucose tending down. And we want to see the ketones rising. Does that happen for you?
Yeah, when I definitely restrict, and I'm coming off of more of my fasted state, absolutely, yeah. Okay. And it's funny, when I do go to the gym, right around there, and I'm on, that empty stomach working out, and I use those battle ropes, right? And I start cranking on those, and I can feel my ketones, like my brain just get that buzz, and that's the sign. I think that's the fun part is, you can just tell, you really start getting the hang of, you can tell when you're in ketosis pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on how much. I'm still playing with it. I'm still learning, what's right for me. I think that's the thing for athletes, is learning that balance, of how long to wait for your fast, like you were saying, plus the amount of fat, plus, just your current day-to-day stress levels, things like that you want to work around and not overtrain. Mm-hmm.
I like to, I love to exercise on the empty stomach in the fasting state. Studies show you get your highest anabolic reaction. Growth hormone goes up, testosterone goes up. You become more sensitive to those anabolic hormones. Everything good happens. The old days, I was one of them. 30 minutes after your exercise, eat, whey protein, get some eat in. And, we really know today that that's not the case, right? Especially when you're fat adapted. When you exercise and then you wait at least an hour after you exercise, you're gaining that benefit of that growth hormone rise, and by the way, you spare your muscle. So that's the cool thing, is when you get that growth hormone rise, you're you're sparing your muscle, meaning you're protecting it, and your body's burning its fat. You're revving up your hormones to replace the glycogen and burn fat. So yeah, I mean, all those amazing things happen. So we don't want to eat right away. And we want to give our body the chance to just appreciate those hormones, those anti-aging, anabolic hormones. So, that was the thing. So I like to, I don't like fat before I work out. I don't like fat during the workout. I like to, really just ride it out. So, I think that if you're doing something very long endurance, there may be a time where you use a lot of your burst, like if you're in a race, that you may have to eat somewhere along the road. But we know that when you're fat adapted, meaning in a ketotic state, that your cells are using mostly fat for energy, you can go hours and hours and hours without eating because it becomes that efficient.
Now, just a question here too. Are there gender differences with that? Or it seems, maybe men can handle that a little bit more as far as going longer times, just eating more fat, less carbs, being kind of tend to shift into ketosis more easily. Can you talk about gender differences?
It's funny. You've been with me when we ask a lot of people that question, whether it's Fung or, Doug, and they always say no. But I always say, well, clinically, for me, there is. I see it. I see that, thyroid, people with thyroid issues, they take longer to adapt. And we have developed now many strategies to help people keto adapt that struggle to keto adapt. Or we've developed strategies for people who are in ketosis and say, I'm not losing weight. I mean, that we could do a whole show right there, right? I mean, because, we've learned that some people don't. And I think women definitely fall more into the category, whether it's because they have certain hormone challenges, more women have hypothyroid. I'm not sure the answer, but I say, yes, women struggle a little more than men to get into ketosis, even lose weight into ketosis. So that's my experience.
Mhm. And then, well, of course, the next question that would be logical is, so what are these strategies? Someone wrote in, I don't understand the 5-1-1 rule, the 2-2-2 rule. I think that could tie into this question as far as some specific strategies for those who are having trouble keto adapting. So can you explain that? It's a lot there, I know, but.
You're doing a really good job of taking the questions and transitioning into our, questions that we have. So diet variation, AKA feast famine cycles, is something that absolutely works. What do I mean by this? Okay, there's different ways to diet vary. That seasonally, maybe you go in ketosis. I've had people who are struggling to get into ketosis, and I say, okay, 3-4 months now, let's go back to a regular cellular healing diet. No grains, no sugar, maybe 100-150 grams of carbs a day, but still no grains. And they go back to that diet, and all of a sudden they start losing weight. And to my amazement, I'm going, why is that? That's weird. So then I say, okay, let's do that for 3 months. Let's go back into ketosis. And then they do, and all of a sudden they start losing weight. That happened to my wife, and it's happened to several people. So that variation causes some type of adaptation, some type of hormone optimization that allows them to be more efficient the next time they go into ketosis. Okay, the 5-1-1 now is weekly diet variation using feast and famine cycles, okay, which I believe we're just imitating ancient cultures doing this, that 5 days a week we are in let's say ketosis, eating a ketosis diet, or maybe even a cellular healing diet, but let's say ketosis where we're under 50 grams of carbs, okay? 1 day a week we fast. We go dinner to dinner, 24 hours. The other day, and it could be random days, not back to back, just random days, we feast. We eat more often that day, whether it's 3 meals a day. We eat higher carbohydrates. Let's try to keep them healthier. Although for healthy people, it doesn't even have to be. They can eat pizzas and pastas. And remember, what's her name that we interviewed, right? Mm-hmm. They were eating every other day, and they were just eating regular diet. It still worked, right?
It did.
I don't recommend
Dr. Kristen Brady with her test, with her experiments. Yeah, the every other day diet.
Right. And they said it wasn't even perfectly every other day, but her thing is we just varied it. We did feast days, fast days, and it worked. And she believed it was some type of adaptation. I agree. So with feast day, for example, my days typically Saturday or Sunday, where I eat more. I eat more of everything. I try to eat more protein, more carbs. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, so what it does is this. We know this for sure. What happens is if you're in a ketotic state long enough, the body will think it's starving because the insulin can get so low. And then it could start to go into gluconeogenesis. But eventually, what the body does is it wants to survive. And if it's using mostly its energy from fat, okay, think about this. What does it do? It can even blunt the insulin receptor and store more fat because it wants to conserve its fat, because it wants to survive. The body always wants to survive. So therefore, it literally blunts the insulin receptor, stores more fat, and all of a sudden you're going, I'm eating 20 carbs a day. Why can't I lose this, or why is it even increasing? It happened to me. And we throw a carb day in, and now all of a sudden your body starts burning fat because it says, okay, we're not starving. Let's burn fat. We feel free to burn. That's what these feast days can do. They remind your body it's not starving. It feels free to burn fat. So, 2 days after typically a feast day, you're actually visibly leaner. Your body starts tapping into that where it didn't. So diet variation can break you into that mode of fat burning again, whether it's seasonal or whether it's weekly, as I just gave an example. Another one is basically a 4-2-1, where we do 2 fasting days in 1 feast day, or we could flip it, do 2 feast days and 1 fast day, and 4. You get the point. It's the variation that matters.
Yeah, it was so fun. Okay.
Yeah, and too, that podcast with your son, Dr. Pompa, was such a great podcast talking about that as well. How Daniel just, applied that, and how, he's transformed himself. It's just incredible. So, Perfect example.
Yeah, no, because what it was is it was hormone optimization, right? So, and I know that some of your questions too, Aaron, are questions that we gathered and questions you may have. is about the fasting as far as, the eating window and, how to do that. I think there's a lot of great questions in there, and that's probably another show, but I mean, I don't know. Meredith, you have the questions in front of you, so I don't want to direct it. You direct it.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep this focus on the ketogenic diet, but we're definitely going to do a fasting Q&A show as well. So any of you listening, if you have fasting questions, send those in. You can submit them on the form on Dr. Pump's website, and we'll get those answered for sure, because that's a whole other can of worms. But just with the fasting, with the 511, I do want to clarify for some people. They say, okay, so fasting day, what do you mean? Is that a water fast? Is that 24 hours, 36 hours? People want to know the exacts there.
Yeah, I just say it's dinner to dinner. So it's 24 hours. So if you eat 7 the night before, go eat at 7 again the night before. So that's what we call a fasting day.
Perfect. Awesome. So 5 days of either keto or cellular healing diet, 1 fast day, 1 feast day. And the feast day, I think, is just so fun too. I think that's part of what makes all of this sustainable. I was explaining the 511 to a client this morning, and she's so excited to have a day to feast. And it's such a win-win, because you get more results when you feast, because the body can relax, doesn't hang on to this toxic fat stores, but you can have fun and plan out those really festive, fun feast meals every week too. So it's such a win-win in that way. So I think that's such a
I think it's essential. I really do. And when you look at all ancient cultures, when they had food, boy, they ate, right? I mean, that's the thing. It is the body is all about survival. And if it thinks it's starving, that's the problem. Think about this. The ketogenic diet, remember, it was called a diet that mimics fasting. You remember that? I mean, because we see the same things happen in ketosis as we do when we're fasting, right? I said we can get into ketosis fasting, or we can get into it with his diet. So we see a lot of the similarities between fasting and ketosis, but with ketosis, if you do it long enough, just like a fast, the body will go into a starvation mode, right? I mean, people can fast typically 30, 40 days and not even hit starvation, right? But eventually it will occur. Same with ketosis. Eventually the body could say, I'm starving. Insulin gets so low, you start burning muscle. And that's when you see people that are low carb. I've seen it. They're fat around their waist, and they're eating 20, 30 grams of carbs. They get less and less, even lower. And why are they still fat? It's because the body's going to hold on to it to survive, unless you throw it off with some diet variation.
Because it just decreases hormone sensitivity, right? It's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, no doubt. The body's smart enough to say, let's blunt the insulin receptor. Let's hold on to this precious energy, because that's all we have, because you're not giving me any other carbohydrate. So, again, I think when we look at cultures, they always, we're moving in and out of ketotic states. When we look at the Eskimos, even when they had the flourish of being able to eat other foods, they sure did. And during the winter time, they would go into ketosis for long. Their winters are much longer. They were strong people, but they definitely held on to a little more fat during those times too. They had to.
Right. Hey, can't outsmart the innate intelligence, right? And also, the person was asking to explain the 222 rule, just because the 511, the 222, they are your creation. They are so brilliant. So if you can just break that down a little bit to clarify.
One of the things when people go, like Aaron, right? How much fat do I eat? Look, it's like, it's so hard. People get overwhelmed. So just to make sure they get a variety of different fats, we do 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter, like Kerrygold, and there's others. Why? Because it has conjugated linoleic acid. That's a fat you actually need to burn fat. There's also medium chain triglycerides. Those are fats that actually help us become more efficient fat burners, right? Coconut oil, loaded with medium chain triglycerides. Those are fats that help us become more efficient fat burners. So 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And then maybe 2 tablespoons of like olive oil or macadamia oil to bring in some monosaturates. So, we're getting a variety with the 222. And then there's actually one more too. 2 teaspoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons of sea salt. Why? Because when you're going into ketosis, you can become electrolyte deficient, because your body starts to lose potassium, magnesium. And remember, Dr. Dominic said at the conference, for him, it's magnesium. He starts getting calf cramps at night. That's an absolute, it could be potassium and it could be magnesium. So, but sodium helps you kind of maintain those electrolytes. So a good sea salt that has some other minerals in it is helpful. Or, You can buy an electrolyte that doesn't have sugar in it. Most do, so be careful. But, you know, which is all of those. And take some extra magnesium. Those are all really good tips.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect transition into this next question. Like, what are the best supplements to take during ketosis? So you said the magnesium, sea salt, electrolytes. Do you have a specific brand you like, or maybe some other specific supplements that are helpful when you're in that ketotic state to optimize it?
Yeah, we sell one called Elite, which is just a pure electrolyte I use all the time. That you sell it on Revelation Health. The magnesium malate, very absorbable. Magnesium citrate, you know, some do better with one versus the other. And then the sea salt, you know, the Himalayan sea salt, some of the different sea salts, you know, carry a lot of different minerals with it. Salt also is beneficial for the adrenals. So, you know, very helpful with the adrenal thing as well. So, you know, those are very helpful. Cerephos helps the cortisol level, because high cortisol levels can kick people out of ketosis. So that, again, that helps the adrenals. So Cerephos is another really good one. You can mention some of the products, the fat products, you know, that we have there on Revelation Health that are helpful as well. But so those are some ideas.
Yeah, it's great. I know you like the PTM as well, which is the potassium sodium stabilizer for ketosis as well. So, and along with all of those you mentioned, yeah, some amazing fats. We have some awesome MCT oil, and there's one I really like, I've been liking lately too. It's by Keto Force, and it's called Keto 8, and it contains a special type of MCTs. They're C8, so they're carbon C8. Like that molecule, so it's a different form of MCT, so it can be a little bit easier on the stomach, and it's also tends to be more ketogenic. So that's one that I like. I've been putting that in my morning coffee. We have some X Factor butter oils, which are high vitamin butter oils, which are delicious blended into your drinks or just taken raw. The butter pecan flavor is my personal favorite. And we have some awesome raw coconut oil, Skinny and Company brand. So as you say, we want to be rotating the fats, just like everything else. It's that constant rotation to diversify and kind of hit all the bases.
Let's go back to Aaron's little example. So Aaron, because we're going to get this question, you know, okay, so you talk about adding these fats, and these fats are great in ketosis, but what about if we're intermittent fasting with ketosis? You know, what about my morning coffee? You did some tests. Tell us what happened with your numbers. And Aaron, or Meredith, you probably have those written down in front of you. But what happened with her coffee fat experiment?
Yeah, well, from what I can remember, Meredith, feel free to chime in. When I actually had just butter just without the coffee, my glucose went up. When I had coffee with butter as well, I believe, I don't know how many points, but it went up. But when I had plain coffee with a little bit of cream, it went down. And so I've been doing the buttery coffee every morning, you know, but now I'm going to try just working out on a fasted state with black coffee and see how I do a little bit better.
Coffee is, you know, it can kick in fat burning for people. You know, when my wife drinks her morning coffee, she gets a massive drop in glucose. Just eating fats could cause a rise in some people. I mean, you know, oddly enough. So again, that's why you test, right? So coffee with fat, try just black coffee, but 30 minutes after you do your morning coffee, test your glucose. You don't even need your ketones. Just see what your glucose does.
Yep.
And you have to look on an average, right? Because, you know, if it's just like 2 or 3 up, that could just be the error of the machine. But if on average, if it stays the same or drops, then you're good with your morning coffee. But try it different ways. If the morning coffee is not working, add some fat. If it's not working with the fat, try just black. So you made our point for us.
Yeah. Oh man, that glucose meter it's changed my life. I mean, cause you know, at first I was testing my ketones. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in ketosis. But then you're like, no, it really doesn't matter unless you've got to have your glucose down. And that was, you know, such a big factor for me. So now I'm one step further into knowing what I need to be doing, which is great.
We're doing a little study of our own with Dr. Mercola and a group of our doctors, where they're all wearing a Dexcom, and it's something that looks at glucose all day long, even when you're sleeping. So wow. We're able to, this is new territory. So we're learning more, you know, about this. So we're doing the finger prick, but, you know, having to actually look at it all day long gives us a much greater information, you know, and it really shows how different people are. right?
And I'm jealous. I want to use, where can I get one of those?
Yeah, they're about $3,000. They're $3,500, and you have to put the insert in. Hey, if you're willing to pay, you can be part of our study. So you're welcome.
There you go.
R&D. Yep.
I've read too, I guess, just for women and talking about the butter, fat in the coffee, that it just seems so much more protective for most women to have fat in their coffee versus not. And especially I'm connected to like adrenal fatigue and adrenal issues, thinking like drinking black coffee if you have adrenal issues, I've read maybe isn't such, a great idea.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's true. I mean, some people, they get the boom and then they get dropped, right? Because their adrenals can't handle the stimulation of coffee. So I agree. I think most of those cases, adding some of these fats to the coffee can give them a more protective effect, but not everybody. So again, test, but I do agree with that. Yeah. Let's start.
I love what you said.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I wanted to hit one thing. We keep talking here. There's that delay, right? The one thing I do want to address in ketosis, because we're going to get this question, we haven't answered it. What about the people who are in ketosis? They're getting high ketone numbers, meaning they're above 0.5, but they're not losing weight, right? Don't we get that? Come on. Yep. Well, diet variation, absolutely a part of that answer. We gave you that, okay? But there's another aspect. We've been talking about doing ketosis with the intermittent fasting daily. When you look at and I presented some of these papers at my conference at the seminar last week, is we know that restriction is key with ketosis, and that really drops the glucose. And in these studies, if we don't get a glucose drop, then we didn't see weight loss. And if you remember that study, I presented that. So therefore then, what do we mean by restriction? Because most people think, okay, just don't eat as much, right? Stop eating, okay, all right, I'm done. I'm not gonna eat as much, and you walk away still hungry a little bit. That's called caloric restriction. We know that doesn't work. I don't think we have to make that argument. So how do we get the restriction then? We get it by fasting, intermittent fasting daily and ketosis. So if someone's not losing weight, if their glucose levels aren't coming down, then more restriction is needed. But not eating less often. So that's why we want to push them out and see if we can get them out. I just had a client who said, listen, he struggled with even getting his glucose drops in the early stages, even 14 hours. Now he's eating one meal a day and he broke through. And now his glucose is plummeting. I mean, his glucose goes down to 60, even 55. His ketones go above 3, even up into the 4s by the end of the day. So this is happening. We call that the target zone. Dr. Seyfried calls it the target zone, what they use for cancer. They want to see this big difference of drop in glucose and rising ketones. But that's when then all of a sudden weight loss kicks in. And I've seen that enough to know that, it takes time to get there, but more restriction is needed. Therefore, we have to get that time that people are eating less often is the key.
Love that. Intermittent fasting, ketosis, and diet variation. Just it takes it all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, if you remember my slide at the seminar, I also said, well, if you're not losing weight in ketosis, you could be eating too much protein, right? And we're going to do a show coming up with Dr. Ron Rosedale, who talks about why too much protein is dangerous because of something called mTOR. So stay tuned for that. Really, really important. But you could be eating too much protein that is driving gluconeogenesis, making sugar from the protein. You could be eating too many carbs. It's different for everybody, right? So, or you may need more restriction. So I hope that answers that question.
Do you think you could add to that eating more fat as well? Maybe somebody wouldn't be eating enough fat?
Yeah, maybe, because if you're not eating enough fat, where are you getting your calories from?
Protein, carbs.
Protein and carbs, right. So the fat equation really comes from, that means you're probably not eating enough as far as a per meal. Remember, here's the importance of eating a big meal, even if you're eating one meal a day. If you push it aside and say, I'm done eating, your body will eventually think it's starving. So the big meal is key. We don't eat less, we eat less often, but when you eat, you better eat to full, because if your body thinks it's starving, it's going to start holding on to fat. Why? Because it wants to live, it wants to survive.
All comes back to that adaptation and survival.
Yep.
But it's brilliant. Well, and this is a perfect transition again into our next question. There was a woman at your seminar, Dr. Pompa, I'm sure you'll recall, who is a big fan of exogenous ketones, which are man-made synthetic supplemental ketones, which I'm sure a lot of you who are watching and are into the ketogenic diet maybe have experimented with. There's a lot of different brands in the market. And someone is wondering what your thoughts are on exogenous ketones, to take, to not take, if to take, which brands you like. So what do you think there?
I think we're in the early, experimental phases of this, right? So, instead of your body burning its fat and making ketones, can we take ketones? Well, let's tell it what we know. We know if you take ketones, okay, which Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, who we mentioned doing the studies for the Defense Department, he is one of the initiators here, right? I mean, scientist who's developing these things. Well, if you take them, we know we can drop glucose. So some people get an initial reaction where they lose some weight, because we know if we can drop glucose, we can actually cause more fat burning, and weight loss. However, one of my fears from the beginning is, in every one of us, there's these mechanisms where the body starts to know how much of certain things are, in the blood, so to speak, right, out in the system. So if we start to feed ketones, the body will keep the ketones at a certain level. It'll shut off fat metabolism so the ketones come back down, because too high ketones can be dangerous, as we know from diabetic ketosis. So this balancing act that the innate intelligence does could then shut down fat metabolism if we keep taking ketones. So now you're not burning your own fat. So where does that occur? When does it occur? I don't think we know the answer to that. And I asked Dominic on, I think, the interview we did on Cell TV, and he said, yeah, we don't know. It could be. So, that woman that you said, right? She said, well, look, I'm taking exogenous ketones. My glucose is down. Her ketones were up. She was in the target range. She said, why am I not losing weight, right? She stopped losing weight. And one of the doctors said, well, it's probably the exogenous ketones. And I believe he's right. Her ketones are up from taking them, forcing the glucose down. But it's obviously shutting off her fat metabolism. So I think it can be a tool for athletes. You take ketones before an endurance thing, man, it puts you into a fat burning. They feel great. They can go longer. No doubt an amazing tool. Could be a tool for diabetics that want to get their intermittent fasting and they're getting symptoms, etc. I think it can be a tool, but like anything, I think that we have to use it wisely.
Well, and what was interesting too, from my standpoint, and maybe this was just a random day, but I actually tested my glucose after taking one of those supplements. There was a little bit of a milk product in it, just a little bit, and I spiked up, I think, by 10 points. It was really interesting.
And that was something that was in the product that you reacted to, right? So, I mean, there's one called Keto Force. There's one called
Prove It. Keto OS. Prove It.
OS. There's another one called Keto CA.
Genix.
Yeah. So I like the ones that just have the beta hydroxybutyrate, which is just pure ketones, and some natural citric acid, which we know helps the uptake of the ketones. So those are some of the brands that I think have a pretty good balance there.
Mm-hmm. Just gotta keep testing.
Yeah. I took some this week too. I just had a couple that I tried this week too, and I definitely felt an increase in energy and cognition. But just, you're in my brain, Dr. Pompa, and I don't like the idea of being dependent on a supplement to create ketones in my body. Like, our bodies have that natural ability. We just have to train ourselves to do it. So I think they can be definitely a helpful crutch, but for long-term use, I think it's really questionable.
Yeah, because we want our body to, listen, there's more than the magic happens in ketosis than just high ketones, right? I think there's so many things that we don't understand yet that go on in a ketotic state, because when you're forcing your cells to burn fat as a source, here's one right now. We know it burns cleaner. It burns like natural gas, very clean. You don't need a chimney, as opposed to wood where you need a chimney, right? So glucose burns like wood. So when we shift your body over to this efficient fat burner, we know that we're decreasing inflammation. Just by taking ketones, are we getting that absolute mitochondrial shift of a fat burner? I don't think so. We want our mitochondria to burn fat as a fuel source, producing ketones, and then we get also the benefits of the ketones. So I think it, like I said, it's a tool, but I think we want our bodies burning fat and making ketones ultimately.
Yeah. Totally. Awesome. Aaron, you had kind of sent an interesting question. Your friend who's had an experience with the HCG diet.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about that. Yeah, that was perfect segue. Yeah. So what about the people, Dr. Pompa, who, like, for example, I have a friend, she grew up at 12 years old, started a diet, no fat, like the low fat, the no fat, fat free this, and, started exercising at a young age and, just had no fat her whole life. And she's gone through some things in her life where she now struggles to lose weight, and she's like an extremely healthy person from the inside, but still has that weight issue. And she's tried, honestly, a lot of things, including HCG, which worked for her for a few rounds, and then it stopped working, of course, as we know these things. But for someone who's been so restricted their whole life, and then she tried to do the ketogenic diet, but again, like, had issues with it because of what she'd gone through. Can someone bounce back, do you think, from that much, kind of hacking on the body, trying to figure it out and restricting the fat and all these things their whole life? Can they come back?
No doubt. Joe Mercola calls it metabolic or mitochondrial metabolic therapy, where we have to fix the mitochondria, right? So, that's what's broken. And how do we do that? Well, all these strategies that we're talking about, right? Intermittent fasting, periodic block fast, and that's something you heard me teach the doctors at the last seminar. Why does this work? Because we're forcing the cells, the mitochondria in particular, to adapt. Eventually they do. It just takes time, right? So when we're forcing the lack of fuel to the mitochondria, whether it's a fast or ketosis, what happens is, because her mitochondria are not utilizing fat, obviously, efficiently. So in these times where we're forcing it in a fast to use fat, it has to, eventually, the bad mitochondria die and the good ones start to multiply. It's called autophagy. The gentleman who just won the 2016 Nobel Prize won it for autophagy, showing why fasting actually works for health. And one of the reasons is autophagy, meaning we lose our bad cells and we gain new ones. So eventually, yes, she just has to replace those faulty, damaged mitochondria, just like a cancer patient, right? And again, fasting, periodic fasting, daily fasting, in and out of ketosis, diet variation, all of these are the tools. And I'll add one more. This is key, is the true cellular detox. Toxins screw up the mitochondria. And until we're upstream dealing with the toxins the right way, you're never going to fix the mitochondria, right? Yeah. So that's important.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and to add to that, she also found out through her own research, she has the MTHFR gene. So there's, methylation issues, but like you said, again, we know how to work with that. But she's tried the ketogenic diet and really loves, obviously, what it's all about. But maybe would you then start someone maybe at break them in slowly at like 50% and then work their way up with fat, from the fat intake standpoint, because of in addition to the strategies you were talking about?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Look, some people will gain weight from a high fat diet, and for multiple reasons. Not the inability to break it down, the inability to burn it. They, increase their caloric intake, because they're eating, more fat and not breaking it down. I mean, all these different reasons. However, so it is different for everybody. So I shift that person over to a lower fat, not low fat, but a lower fat, maybe cellular healing diet, moderate carbohydrate. To today's standards, it's still considered a low carbohydrate. 100 to 150 grams of carbs a day. That's really low carb. I had a gentleman deliver something to my house, and he's a talkative guy, and he started telling me he had his toes removed. Yeah, if you didn't see me for a couple months, he had his toes taken off, diabetes, right? And I immediately said, well, whatever you do, don't follow the Diabetes Association diet. Well, yeah, they put me on a really low carb diet. I'm like, oh, well, that's good. Yeah, so they have me eating 75 grams no less or no more than 75 grams of carbohydrates per meal. I'm like, per
meal? I think you were going to say
meal.
per day.
Yeah. I'm
Oh
like,
my
are you kidding me? I don't get that in a day, right?
God.
So the poor guy, I mean, just absolutely. But I mean, the point is that, diets today, they call that low carb, my God. So point is, though, is that you have to shift the diet. So anyways, I want to.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you for that. It's we talk about it all the time. That multi-therapeutic approach is so key. It's not just one thing, it's all of them. And it's, we're all different. We've all gone through different things. We gotta work at it and test things. And, that's the key. So.
Yeah. And it's different for everybody, right? I mean, that's why most people who have major challenges, they need a coach, right? I mean, you need someone who's experienced this and knows what to do when. I mean, with the detox, even these fasts, the average healthy person, can experiment with it, but sick people, there's so many things that happen. You have to know what to do. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I think this is a great place to close. I mean, we have more questions, but I think, we're up on the end of the hour and ending it with the multi-therapeutic approach. And that is the foundation for everything that we do to fix dysfunctional mitochondria, to fix, our bodies when they're not working and we can't lose weight and our bodies and brains aren't functioning. That is the answer. And because it's not one answer, but that is the answer, is the multi-therapeutic approach.
And look, we're going to do another one of these shows. I think taking people's questions, I think this is a great show. We're going to do it for the fasting, intermittent fasting, because we probably created more questions. So we'll do another show on that. And we definitely, Meredith, we have to do a show on diet variation as a separate show too, because there's a lot of strategies there that we can build on. And let's gather some questions for that. And we can have Erin on anytime, because I love, bringing the third, party in. So you just keep bringing those questions, Erin. We'll keep
I'm there. Oh man, if only these podcasts could be like 5 hours long.
I know, we need to cut it off, but we got to keep it in. But Erin, thank you for joining and being an amazing part of the team and walking the talk and practicing what you preach, and as we all do. And I think that's where the value comes, is that this isn't us just reading from textbooks, but so much of this is personal experience and the clinical wisdom that you bring as well, Dr. Pompa. It's just, it's so fun to talk about, and we're so excited to share. So if you're watching, you have more questions, send them in, submit them, and we'll do more Q&As in the future. And thanks so much, Erin and Dr. Pompa, and thanks everybody for watching. It's been so fun.
See you guys.
Thank you guys.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.